Well, here is the game state at the end of play. We reached turn 18. Here's the loss pile. These are Christian losses from ranged attacks in 3 weeks from the Ottomans. I just put it there to calculate how much effect the Ottomans can have with ranged attacks. They got between 6 and 12 SPs, a number of them sergeants or knights. That's the last losses from plague. You can see essentially the state of affairs is this, that the Ottomans managed to move up. They took all of Burgu. Just to note that I left a trail of movement for the Ottomans here. I didn't strictly need to because they own all of Senglir, so that's free movement for them. I just left that for purposes of the video to show where the Ottomans went. Also, this is all controlled by them now. And the Christians essentially have bottled themselves up in St. Angelo, and they have a small force left there on the bridge. And they've actually entered the game with more forces than the Ottomans. You can see the stacks there of the Ottomans very minimum. They're 6 or 5 or even like 2 SPs at most. Outside the walls, they've just got their artillery left. That are the remaining Ottoman forces, and 4 SPs in the camp. So the Christians ended up with a lot more forces than the Ottomans, due essentially to the plague. The Ottomans, they had a bit of bad luck. They made one terrible mistake, and then they had a bit of bad luck in that around about this point, both sides were relatively happy in that the Ottomans had gained 2 footholds in Burgu. All they wanted was to take Burgu and St. Angelo, and they had like half the game left to win those 2 places. The Christians were also happy because of the Piccolo relief card. They had won it 3 times. The Ottomans never saw it. The Christians played it 3 times, which meant that they could get large reinforcements. Now, the Ottoman deadly mistake was that they never screened off Burgu. If they had screened it off with forces, the Christian relief could not have come straight in. It might have been able to come straight into St. Angelo, but then it would have to be ferried across once a week. In dribs and drabs. So it was a major mistake that the Ottomans let those 3 Piccolo reliefs in here, which effectively won the game for the Christians, because they withdrew as soon as the Ottomans were in here, and they had been here for a while. The Christians withdrew back here, and you saw that in the last video. They massed forces here, and all the Ottomans could do against that was ranged attacks to whittle them down, and then if they'd whittled a stack down enough and still had some card play left, or a card to play, they would then melee it, because the Christians, being able to mass a lot more SPs than the Ottomans, they could support any sort of tactical zone. Say if this one here, it depends on which zone it is, but many zones, the Christians say that Christians had a force there. There was 2 other zones connected to it which they could support at half strength. So because they could amass a lot more SPs, even with the strong Janissaries, the supporting stacks that the Ottomans could bring to bear were not enough to bring the melee odds above, say, worse or 1 to 2. So at those odds, you can see that the defender does not take so many losses, if any, whilst the attacker can take massive losses. So it just wasn't worth it for the Ottomans to melee until they had managed to whittle a stack right down and had another card to play a melee it before the turn, as it were, went over to the Christians, who could then move some of those supporting units in to that stack and reinforce that tactical zone. So then the other problem that the Ottomans had was the end of weeks. 3 times So they were quite unlucky in this respect, but it can happen. 3 times they had just started a week and they drew the end of the week as the end of the week card. So in essence, they lost 3 weeks completely and took in that 24 SPs of losses from the plague. Now that's a massive blow. Now that might just be unlucky, but on the other hand, one of the Christian tactics was that they were playing as many events as they can, and you see here these events that return to play, optional return to play, they play them and opted to keep them out of play, which meant the play deck was smaller, so the 5 end of week cards coming up more frequently than they might do otherwise. So yes, it was good play by the Christians, some poor play by the Ottomans, but also a bit unlucky, and I want to play again and be very careful with the Ottomans, and I think I might play again with the same strategy. So essentially the Ottomans, all they have to do with strategy 3 is take this. I mean, they could do something else, but they actually lost a lot of honour. They were down to 0 honour because Burgu, they started assaulting Burgu, and it didn't completely fall to them until about here or here. So every week after 5 weeks of that, they were losing a point of honour for not having taken the town quick enough. So it was tricky. It was tricky for the Ottomans, and I'd like to try that strategy again, because essentially that strategy means all they have to concentrate is on these 2 fortifications to win the game. But of course, obviously the Christians then only have to concentrate on defending that. However, if the Christians have not played traitor in the Ottoman camp, they don't know the Ottoman strategy card. So, the Ottomans could bluff with some forces around here threatening this. But I think the bluff is a tricky thing for the Ottoman, because it does cost quite a lot of card play. And every card play that the Ottomans play can be crucial, especially if plague has broken out, which the odds are quite small each turn. They do go up 1%, 2%. So I got plague, I think it was around here, 6 or 7% odds. But if it does break out early, the Ottomans are losing many, many men. So not only are they running out of time in number of game turns, but also they're running out of time in the number of men that are going to be left. So it was an interesting game. I want to try again. I want to see what the Ottomans can do, because I feel it was quite tough for them. It was very exciting to play as Christians this time because, well, they they were having fun watching the Ottomans struggling. Plus, playing the relief force was a great boost for them all those times. Yeah, it was good for them because they felt well most of the game, and they had some fun towards the end. They were just drawing stacks of cards, trying to rush the Christian relief force. So just looking every week, every sort of cards, every turn of theirs, they were looking for these cards to bring on the main relief. As it happened, the game ended because of yes, it was because the relief force came in. So because the relief force arrived on a roll, the Ottomans, the game had to end 2 weeks later. Even so, the Ottomans didn't have enough time. They could have had 2 more weeks of play, but they just didn't have the forces left. I think they can be quite pleased for having taken these 2. The next, now they took Sanglia so that they could gain another point of entry apart from here upon Burgu. Maybe that was a good tactic, but maybe not. Next time, I think I'm just going to concentrate on them trying to charge straight through Burgu. If they ever see the Piccolo Relief Force card, they will hold it in their hand and never release it back to give the Christians a chance. So with a bit of better luck, I think the Ottomans could do better than they did, and they were. It was interesting to try their tactics of the range attacks, and then jump in with the melee at a certain point. I think that's got to be the way to go once you're inside a town, and it's essential to breach the walls to get a foothold in them. Although I didn't try scaling. I might try that the next turn, the next time, because I just read from someone's other game report that putting levies into scaling can be quite effective. The levies are quite cheap units, so you're not going to worry too much if that you lose them in the scaling attempt. Okay, so that's the end of my second game, and I'm looking forward to my third. I think I should just say a final note. I'll just put a picture. I have this picture I picked up in a like an antiques market once of the Arab, they called it. So there you go. I brought that out for this game. Just a note to say that I've got the latest revisions of the game rules, so it's more like clarifications and extra explanations and actual changes in the game rules. There's been one or two changes. Just to remind people, if they are watching these videos, that I am playing a playtest copy, so certain things might change. I don't think anything's going to change majorly, but like calculations of attacks or so forth might change before the game is finalized, and of course all these components and so forth may change. It might look different, but the main points will hold, I'm sure. Okay, over and out.